Hi, everyone. I'm here today with Dr. Ray Cohlmia, the Executive Director of the American Dental Association. First of all, I want to thank you for taking the time off from your busy schedule to have a meeting with us and answer some questions. I think we talked before that there are a lot of important issues that everyday dentists want to talk about.
Oh,
And I
yes.
think the ADA can help bring us all together. The ADA is us, and I've talked to you about this, and I would love to offer my platform to you once a quarter. Come by and talk, and we can bring everybody together. We can accomplish something. I believe we're at crossroads in the dental world, and we need to all have one voice. And I believe the ADA is the best voice right now. Would you take 2 or 3 minutes to address the audience? And then I know our time is limited. I'd like to get as many questions as I can.
Bob, thank you so much for being here. I love the opportunity to visit with people and to understand the new view of the American Dental Association, because your American Dental Association going through a lot of changes. You know, it's interesting because you had written that I'm the person behind the scenes that's running the ADA. Technically, you know, when you look at the president and the president-elect, they're the ones that the board sets the vision of the profession, and I'm the one that fulfills the business side, carries out the day-to-day operations, and makes sure that we're indeed a formidable operation and association and representing the profession as we go towards the future. So to that fact, I have made a lot of changes at the ADA. We're focusing on customers. You know, when we say customer, and it's the customer experience, but it's reinforcing the members. The members is the most important thing that we have. And if we start looking at our members, not just as our members, but creating an experience, it's called the customer experience, where we envelop them, we engage them, that we work with them, that we know what they need, and that they help us define where the future is going to be. So the member is everything that we're working on right now. Everything is the focus about the member. Those customer groups are direct to member. The second group is the tripartite. Remember, we are a tripartite organization, Bob. So we have components and constituents. Then we talk about the internal operations or the enterprise. That means we have to be supporting ourselves to make sure that we provide what we need. And then lastly, which is a big group, is the public professional. Now that's where our members really come into play. That's really the outward facing aspects of the American Dental Association. You know, my former position, I've said something, and I said the same thing, that the battle of the American Dental Association is outside the walls at 211, not inside the walls. So we have to look at the public professional and be the facing voice and be the representation. Our ADA SEAL program, our science and research, so many things that the American Dental Association does behind the scenes that creates a better professional experience, a better professional, and ultimately serves the members at the highest level possible. You know, Dr. Shepley has created an incredible opportunity for us when he says we create a new vision statement of we make people healthy. You know, that's Dr. Shepley, the president of the American Dental Association, and the president-elect, Dr. Edgar. They both understand what their position is and what we need to do in order to support dentists of the future. That's the critical thing that the American Dental Association needs to engage, come together. It's a world no longer about competition, Bob. This is not about competition. This is about collegiality. This is about synergy. This is about coming together. This is about the ADA helping other organizations become stronger, because if they become stronger, we become stronger. But we are working to become the common voice that helps to drive and make sure to ensure that the profession of today is that of tomorrow for those members that we're working for each and every day, sir.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for that introduction. I want to jump into the questions. These questions were given to me by the members, publicly and privately. We're recording this to be played in our group and in our YouTube channel for people to see and to be informed. One of the biggest issues that I believe, this is my own question, is the most important issue facing dentistry is the high cost of dental education. Yeah. I believe graduating a young dentist with anywhere from $400,000 to $700,000 worth of debt puts a stranglehold on these dentists to do things that they may not have been doing 30 years ago when I graduated. I strongly feel that something has to be done about this high cost of dental education. Does the ADA have any plans to address this?
You know, Bob, we're working with the American Dental Education Association right now. Okay, this is a critical issue, and you're indeed right that $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, and it's not just that, because your Generation X's, your Alphas, the ones that are approaching school are going to look at what the cost of education is, and they're going to look at what their loss of investment is. Now, let me just talk real quick about that. So if I graduate college, my average income will be, say, $85,000 to $90,000. If I multiply that by 4, I'm at $360,000 to $400,000. And then, of course, the power of money over 4 years is about another $100,000. So we're talking about $500,000. So now I come out of dental school. I've lost the productivity of $500,000. Then I turn around, I'm another $400,000 to $500,000 to $600,000 in debt. When that number gets to 1.3 to 1.4, your return or your break-even point is now 20, 21 some odd years. You know, it just starts to get further. So you're gonna have generations say, I'd like to be a dentist, but it's just not worth the debt. So we better get a handle on this. Now, why is the cost of education skyrocketing? By the way, the cost really hasn't changed over the last 30 or 40 years. It's who's paying for it has changed. Now, I'm from a university background. I'm a former dean of a college of dentistry. And it's interesting because we went from a large amount of state funding to a very small amount within a short amount of time. So schools are struggling with receiving federal care, state care, support, ultimately to provide the cost offset, investing in the higher education. Because remember, the schools, it's not just about educating dentists. They forget, we're treating people too. I think the schools treat around 5 to 6 million patients overall in a year's time, that population that would not receive dental care otherwise. So we're working with them right now, influencing our politicians, working with our legislatures, one, to work on better tax credits, deductibility, loan reimbursement, loan forgiveness, multiple aspects in order to offer them to go where they want to practice, because now it's starting to affect where they want to practice. Because now it's not where I want to go practice here, but I've got to make sure that I can make a loan payment. Think about the loan payment structure right now. If they have to pay, say, $3,000 or $4,000 a month in loans, let's say $3,000. Well, that's $36,000 a year, and you invert that by 30% because it's not tax deductible. We're at $50,000, $55,000, $50,000, $60,000. Well, our first $55,000, we've paid a loan. We haven't eaten. We haven't done anything else, Bob. We've done nothing else. So the American Dental Association, and this is what I told them I would be taking a strong interest, is we are working with the schools. I'm traveling to all the dental schools right now, talking to the deans, talking to the faculty. What can we better do to support your operation to help lower the cost of education that makes sure that we continually have a stream of applicants coming in that ultimately help the diversified population, the underserved population, and basically our graduates are practicing where they want to practice. That is the key thing. It's not based upon what I have to do. It's based upon where I feel that I could really do the best change of changing people's lives. So we're working very strongly with the DIA, with ASDA, with the ADA. Actually, our governmental areas is working very intensely on education reform. Tax deductibility. Faculty is another big issue right now. Remember, the cost of faculty is influencing that cost. When you pay that tuition bill, you got to pay that faculty. Well, if an average faculty starts at $100,000, $125,000, you can't even pay your loan based upon that. So ultimately, that's what the American Dental Association is doing right now, and taking a very strong interest in working with all those different areas. We're working on the READY Act. We're working on tax loan credits. We're working on the repay system, which is a totally different system to offset faculty coming into school. These are all going to be cost-saving adventures for the education industry that hopefully begins to start lowering the cost of education. We have not seen a change in number of applicants at this point, but we sure will in the future if the cost of education continues the way it is right now, sir.
Yeah, this is really, really important. I want to kind of spend one more minute on this, and I feel that this high cost of education, and I've written about this, and I've spoken about this, and I will be speaking about it next week. That I think this high cost of education benefits a few people. These are, entities that should not be benefited from this. If you have a dentist graduating with high debt, now that dentist can't really take a job at a private practice or buy a practice or start a practice anymore. They are basically forced to work for a corporate entity. I have no issues with corporate entities. That's a different product. I'm not going to address that. However, this limits choice. And I want to see a meaningful change. As you spoke, I like to hear that, but I also like to see a meaningful change. We've talked about this, that, you know, this has been said many times before and nothing has been done. So I'm hoping that with our communications and with your efforts, this can change.
Well, that's indeed, sir, what we're trying to do. We've done a whole lot of talking in the past. It's time to be active. You know, one of our processes is called strategic forecasting, which I'm very excited about, that the American Dental Association is moving towards. Why? Because it defines where we're going to be. It creates an action plan. It says, if we're going to be this in 5 years, this is what we've got to do right now to get there. It doesn't look at the rearview mirror, it looks at the windshield. It drives where we're going to be, which is what I'm really excited about. And this is one of those critical subjects. We can no longer talk about it. We have to provide action. And I'll tell you something, we are actually providing action. Our alignment now with American Dental Education Association, stronger than it ever has been before. And we're working on this together to really change this. But it's going to have to carry a message, not just through us, but through our entire membership, that our state associations, that our state groups are going to have to become vocal in telling their legislatures that they've got to support it. Remember, most educational institutions are state supported, not necessarily federal. Federal plays a small role. So I'm working on the federal side to carry this message, but we need help on the state side, because we are not investing in higher education. If we don't invest in higher education, then we're going to cause the educational cost to skyrocket. And this is not just in dentistry. This is in higher education. This is in medicine. This is in healthcare. You know, Bob, one of the things we're challenged with too is the nature of today's thought process. You know, COVID taught us how to remote work, but that's kind of fun. You know, remote working and working when you want to work. Well, you know as well as I do, in the healthcare operations, you got to be there. There's no remote work. You've got to be there. So that's also playing some roles, which is creating staff shorting issues, you know, dental assistant issues, because healthcare is changing dramatically and the demands of healthcare is much more. Well, what's that doing? That means if less people are going to become assistants and less people are going to be in the healthcare, then we got to drive the prices up even further to the cost of delivering dental care to the people that we're trying to serve. So there's a lot of factors, but yes, sir, we are indeed working very hard for the push. And I said I would. When they hired me, I said, hey, education is going to be one of our fortes that we got to really work on. So that's indeed what we're doing, sir.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate this fact that I am offering you this platform. Come
yes,
by.
I'm excited about that. Thank you.
I believe in accountability. I believe in transparency. As I want you to come and tell me, hey, Bob, last quarter we talked about this. Look and see what we've done. And I will report for you and I will advertise for you. I will join the ADA. I'm going to join that at the end of today's meeting.
Thank you.
So let's jump into another topic.
But you know what? When you said metrics, real quick, Bob, I'll tell you something. When you say, that's how I work with metrics. That's my whole life. Is accountability, proving and outcomes that we're making a difference. So that's what you're going to hear from me in the near future. I'm
glad to hear that. The next two questions, I don't want to mess it up, so I'm going to kind of read it for you. And they're connected. These are submitted by others to me, and I wanted to make sure I get it right. While it's evident that the ADA and its state societies maintain some degree of separation, our members are eager to engage with the larger community and have a few questions that we would like to appreciate you for your input. In the light of recent events, such as the tragic suicide of Dr. Jonathan Jenkins, the vice president of the ADA, I think it was a past vice president, due to local politics, we believe it is important for state leaders to create a healthier and more inclusive environment for all members. Do you have any advice or suggestions on how state leaders can achieve this goal?
You know, that's a very difficult question, because what I'm working to is to strengthen the tripartite. Now you're talking about the components and constituents. And before, the American Dental Association used to be at the top, and then you had the constituents, which is the states, and the components. I have reversed that philosophy. That's not true anymore. We're all on equal plane. You know, it's almost like if you look at the component, the constituent, or the national ADA, what's the most important? The answer is yes. We're all critically important. So we are actually working with communication campaigns, assisting states what we need to do, and states are helping other states now. The key here is it's the Uber concept. It's connecting a rider with a person that has a car. So what we're doing at the ADA is creating a much more formidable communications platform than we've ever done before. Hopefully that we never see these type of situations where other states can learn from other states. We can learn from them. The ADA can be the proponent that carries the information from one place to the other. We like to provide forums for all of our constituents where they can come together and talk and visit and actually discuss things of how they can improve their own particular area. And then that trickles down to the leaders, et cetera, et cetera. So we're working hard in the transparency of communication, the commonality of communication, and working across the board from the component constituent to the national. So that's a very complex subject, but that's one of our things. We just did something called Principles of Partnership, which I'm very excited about, that the 52 constituents have signed. And it's agreement that we all come together and work together to improve each other's environment, opportunities, and future. So that's what we're working on right now to make sure something like that never happens again. But it's going to be a long road. It's going to be a tough road, Bob, as we move forward.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at this is that I look for the ADA to take the leadership position on this. I want you guys to be able to tell the state organization, this is what we expect of you. This is how you're supposed to behave when these kind of situations come up, not to scapegoat someone to the point of this colleague of ours. He dedicated his life to organized dentistry, and he felt so pressured to commit suicide. That to me is heartbreaking. And I didn't really know a lot about this situation. But the next question I want to bring up is that the recent medical loss ratio question too.
Yeah.
Everybody's excited about it. Yeah. And we're very thankful for the contribution that the ADA made to the campaign. This question says, the recent MLR ballot initiative in Massachusetts was a significant win for the dental community. However, there has been some disharmony between the Massachusetts Dental Society and the founder of the initiatives, Dr. Riscala and Dr. Abdul. The Massachusetts Dental Society is attempting to remove Dr. Abdul from his position as incoming president for his involvement with the initiative. Do you have any thoughts on this matter? And do you believe it is hindering our momentum? I think these, and this is me talking now, I think these little infightings are taken away from the importance of this initiative. I mean, I don't understand it. As you know, I never hang out with dentists, and I don't understand this infighting and this power struggle. Why can't we all work together, Ray? Talk to me about this.
Bob, that's a good point. But, I don't want to go down that avenue because ultimately Dr. Riscala created a movement that's been incredible. So let's talk about the positive effects of what MLR is doing, okay? We got 21 states across the nation that are working on putting this legislation in place. Finally, that we're starting to represent the patient. And we start to talk about a focused opportunity that really treats things equitably along the way. And MLR is one of the greatest things that's happening right now. We're excited about this because it holds accountability across the board for everybody, not just the dentists, not but the patients, but the insurance companies as well, which is ultimately what it's about. So I'm not seeing what you're saying. I'm seeing nothing but excitement, from states across the nation that are taking this up as a process. We're very excited about this. I don't see the progress slowing down one bit. And the American Dental Association has created a template. Our governmental affairs area, led by Mr. Mike Graham, our senior VP, he's working on that. And we have an entire kit that is ready for states and working with states. And we have state assigned representatives that we're working with them to help to put the MLR in process. Now, what's the ADA doing is we're communicating across the board. We are becoming, when you said the ADA becomes the lead, yes, we have to create the relationships. One thing that it becomes to be a leader first is that you got to create relationships. You got to create trust. You got to create commonality. You got to create communication. Then it's amazing once you do that, you can move forward. I used to say CBC, communication, business communication. That means business follows communication. So by doing so with this initiative, we're creating strong communication across the entire nation, providing them the resources that they need in order to move this process forward. Massachusetts was wonderful. Dr. Riscala, by starting this entire movement, has been incredible. We just love what we're doing right now with moving this, but I'm seeing this happen across the entire nation. Some states, it'll be a regulatory change. Most states, it's going to be an initiative that has to be voted upon. But you saw clearly that 72, 73% of the people voted strongly in favor of this. So it's a representation to really finally get to the patient and say, this is something we're doing for the patient and the practitioner at the same time. So I don't see the slowdown of movement. I see nothing but excitement, and we've got to strike while the iron's hot. And that's indeed what's happening across this nation right now.
Yeah, Ray, I want you to hopefully commit to this, commit to the fact that you're going to follow up with the states. I know I've talked to many people that through the legislation, this movement has been shut down many times. Why not take the roadmap Dr. Riscala created and duplicate it in 49 other states? Why can't that be done? Why can't we use that as not necessarily the same, every state is different, but why not use it as a roadmap? Hey, this is what we're supposed to do. Look at them in the past 10 years in Massachusetts. They were not successful. Every time they brought it to the legislation, it didn't work. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, Bob, I hate to disagree with you, but you got a good start. And we did create a template, and we've done exactly that. But that's not going to work from every state to state. And it's a lot like the football game. If I run the same play over and over, after a while, the defense is going to know exactly what the play is and going to put the people in position. That's what we have to be cautious of. So just because we have a template, we've got to customize it for the state. We've got to look at the players involved. We've got to look at the opposition involved with each one of the states. But what you're indeed saying has some merit. We've started this basic template. Yes, you're right. What worked in Massachusetts may not necessarily work in another state. We have to accept that. It's a different type of game plan because every state is individually operated, individually governed, individually how they do things. So there is no one size that fits all. You know, I've said that many times about so many different things. If you've seen one dental school, you've seen one dental school. They all vary dramatically in their culture and their thought process, but their end goal is the same. So, Bob, a one size fits all is not going to cover it when it comes to MLR. We work and we have created a template that we start with based upon the Massachusetts initiative, but we have specific directors that are assigned to each of our states that work specifically to what does that state need to do? What people do we need to have at the table? What is our plan of action for that? Because if we do the same plan of action over and over, the opposition will indeed know how to defend that. You know that as well as I do. So you're right. We start with a template, but that's the first start. We then have to take that and morph, change, and whatever is necessary specifically to the individual state, which is what we're doing at the ADA. Teaching the state what we can do and working specifically with them.
And I appreciate it. And I just want you to know how important this matter is. I talk to many, many dentists, and yes, I'm sure you do too. This is of utmost importance to the everyday dentist. And I'm hoping that you can hold up the leadership of the ADA to lead different states in this fight. This is a fight. This is a fight for our profession. And this is a fight for the survival of the ADA. I believe. Right.
And this is where Dr. Shepley and the Board of Trustees are taking a strong lead on this and making sure that, yes, what do we need to do? And they're the ones that are bringing up the individual says, well, wait, in this particular state, this is the best avenue to do this. They're the ones that helped, that took the template, the basic foundation, and the board is the one that took it to the next level, that's driving it to the initiative, to the individual states. And that's what we're seeing right now. And that's what the ADA is doing. The ADA is going to be very much more predominant and focused, and you're going to see more about the ADA in the future. We don't have as much time, but I could tell you the next time, I could tell you a lot more plans and things that we're doing on the American Dental Association to make people know what the ADA is, not just in the nation, but internationally as well. So
yeah, that is great. And that's all I want. I want transparency. I don't want a watered down version of this to come around in New Mexico or in Alabama. Right. You know, right. Everybody deserves the same around the country. Okay, let's switch gears, Ray.
Yes, sir.
Coding modifiers. It's another hot topic, and yes, everybody's bringing it up. Everybody's talking about this, and I have to be completely honest with you. I don't know much about it. But I've heard that the argument against it is that it's going to increase the cost of doing business as a dentist. And it's another bureaucratic thing that is going to benefit insurance companies rather than the everyday dentist. Now, I have talked to our friend, Dr. Kessler, and he has explained some of it to me. I want to hear from you. What is this all about? What are we doing with these new modifiers for the codes?
Yeah, the modifiers for the code actually drive a completely different mindset. It's not about putting the advantage of one company. It's getting data and information that we truly need to see. If we are as professionals, what does it mean to be a professional? Well, it's simple: higher education, self-governance, and advancing the arts and sciences to all people everywhere. Right now, 50 to 60% of the people in the United States don't receive dental care on a regular basis. Coding modifiers is just another way to get us some more information and data that helps us to serve the people that we're going to serve. Now, it's a slow process and it's a challenging process because everybody can always use something to a negative side. You know, a car is designed for transportation, yet if I go drive it into a crowd, it also became a weapon. So that's the key, is that, you know, people look at it from the negative side, and we got to look at it from all different aspects. Coding modifiers is a very in-depth subject. You know, it says, are we aligning more to medicine? That is not the issue. We do believe that we need to be part of primary healthcare. We know that dentistry is really critically important, but we have to understand and carry the message that dentistry is different than medicine. It can't be the same thing. You can't do the same reimbursement across the board comparatively. So coding modifiers actually will help to work to the benefit of the profession and the people we're serving and to our individual members if used properly. And we've got to make sure that this is done in a proper format more than anything else. It's a very delicate subject, Bob. It's a very sensitive subject. But at the same time, we know for a fact that government programs and governments and the consumerism tends to drive things like this. If we're not at the table, which we're all right now, we're just starting to sign, you know, because now we're actually helping to shape the future and what these modifiers and how the input's going to be. We now are at the table discussing this and driving what to make sure that this goes down the right path compared to a negative path or work something against us. So we've got a ways to go on coding modifiers. You know, this is something that's not going to happen overnight by any means, but we know the pressures of consumerism, the pressures of the current medical environment, you know, the expectations of the public, the expectations of our legislatures, the expectations of governments there, and going to be pushing things. So we've got to make sure that at the same time that this moves forward, that we're the ones driving the ship, we're the ones making sure that we have the voice at the table, that this does not become a negative issue, becomes extremely positive in order for us to help serve and take care of the patients, which we need to do. So it's a very complex subject, Bob. We could spend an entire session on modifiers at the same time. I mean, this is a very in-depth subject. You know, I just can't answer this in a 2-minute process. We'd have to start from one end to the other, but maybe someday we could actually have this discussion. But we are working on that. We're at the table. We're having really strong discussions about this, making sure that this goes down to the path at the benefit of the profession, making sure that nobody's cut out of this, especially the patient, that they understand what we're trying to do, that this is good information in the long run that will help serve our people.
And I would love for you to not necessarily, maybe not you, but someone that from the ADA can come and spend an hour with me and explain it to the members. I'm not judging yet. I don't know much about it, and I don't know many of our colleagues know about it. So I've been given some questions. That's what it is.
But remember, one other thing, though, is that as we move forward, the technology systems involved help to address a lot of this. So when you say, is it a higher cost? It can be, but it also may not be at the same time, depending on how we design our systems and how that process is put into place.
Okay, so we'll address this issue in future meetings.
All right.
Does the ADA have any plans to help the everyday dentist with the high cost of operating a dental business? And I'm calling it a dental business because it is a business. We are healthcare professionals, but at the same time, we can't help anyone if our business is failing. And this has a lot to do with the decreasing reimbursements by the insurance companies. I have myself gotten 3 or 4 letters cutting the reimbursements rather than increasing due to the high cost of living. Does the ADA have any initiative to help us with that?
You know, it's interesting you would say that, because now we're starting to take the offensive. Now we're starting to move forward, and MLR was the first start. You know, so to answer your question, yes. We're fomenting strategies right now that's going to actually help to support the individual practitioners to work to say, this is what our defined costs are, because the insurance companies were basically who regulates the dental insurance company? There is no regulation. There's not. So we've got to start from that point of saying, holding accountability. So it's not just the accountability on our side. You love to use the term accountability, as I do. We're all accountable. You know, when I'm accountable to accreditation, I'm accountable to my patients. We have to be accountable to the costs and the actual process there. So the American Dental Association is working very hard, starting with a strategic plan. A strategic forecasting process is going to find where we're going to be. Now, I'd love to come back in 3 months and give you a lot more information on this, because that's the process of what we're doing, is defining what direction we want to take and how we're going to do this. I can tell you that the repeal of McCarron Ferguson, that started the first start, but we have not taken advantage of that. It's time to take advantage. So MLR is obviously one of our next steps. What's the next step after that? Well, it's holding people accountable to MLR. So once an MLR is in place, for example, what happens if a company does not follow it? What is the consequences? That's the first step. That's the next step. So again, we are working very hard to make sure reimbursement's there, to educate dentists, and at the same time, help them run their business and practice better. That's what the purpose of the ADA is bringing people together, bringing services together, bringing products, bringing experience, bringing education at a very affordable cost, which is what we do each and every day. The programs for the American Dental Association, what we deliver, they're vast. Between our programs, our products, our services, it's just amazing what we can do. But we have to get that message out, Bob, of what we're offering. Most people have no idea what the ADA does. You know, we're still learning this each and every day. Our weakest platform is delivery of information. And we do a lot of exactly what you're talking about to help those practitioners. We do a lot to help them to make decisions on those insurance contracts. We do a lot to help them legally to understand what these things are. We do a lot to help them in cost efficiencies for their practice. We do a lot to help them in how to practice. That information is not being get out there. It's not out there the way it needs to be. So that's what we're working on. But that's indeed what the ADA is designed to do.
And that's what we talked about, before we started this session. And, the most common comment I hear from members and from other dentists is that, what does the ADA do for me?
Yeah.
And I believe in my heart that you guys do a lot of stuff. It's just that it's not getting out. And it's not just getting out to the members. I think the ADA does a poor job of relaying that message to the non-members.
Mm-hmm.
The members already signed up. They already should know. It's people like me that they need to get this information, and I'm here to help. This is my first thing that I told you, is that I am not here to bash anyone. I'm here to help you guys get the message out, but I do want to see results.
Yes, sir.
And I really appreciate you being here today. And you mentioned a piece of legislation that I kind of heard it. Is this the one that about 3 years ago, the ADA is taking legal action against Delta Dental in all different states? Was that the one that you were talking about?
No, the McCarron Ferguson Act. The McCarron Ferguson Act was an act that was done many, many years ago that actually allowed insurance companies to work independently and actually compare and share fees across the board, but it didn't allow the dentist to do that too. So that's a particular area. But Bob, you're right. I'm working with multiple different forms of getting the message out. We've always used a blanket form, a mass amount of communication, and we target the members. I want to target the non-members too, because I need them to see what we're doing. And you're right, it's about metrics. What has the ADA done for me today? That's the question. What is happening behind the scenes? We also have to look at the fact that the upcoming generations, the alphas and the X's, they look for tangible benefits too. This is not just intangible, because so many things are done for you behind the scenes, Bob, where we do things each and every day that if we went down the list, we could show you what we've saved in your dues 10 times over each and every year. And this is not products and services. This is all the legislation that we're doing that's protecting the dentistry, to making sure that we're moving forward, that they can have a formidable position, and take care of our patients. Nothing can interfere with the doctor-patient relationship. That's the most critical thing. That's step number one. So ultimately is that what you're saying is we're not getting the message out. We have to have a customized delivery format, and we're working that through digital interactions, through social media, through social operations. We're doing major changes in the last 14 months. We have changed the American Dental Association dramatically to start focusing on these groups, these business groups, as I said, direct to dentist, direct to tripartite, the public professional. What's it going to take to influence those areas and deliver the information we need? Because what we're doing before has not necessarily been effective. What worked 15 or 20 years ago won't work. As I used to say, what got us here won't get us there. Any business or operation that operates, and this includes you, Bob, and anybody, if you're operating the way you did 15 or 20 years ago, you're going to be struggling to be in business of 15 to 20 years from now. That is just a sheer fact of how The world is changing so dramatically, consumerism, business disruption. We've got to be on board with that and get that information out. And that's what we're working on right now. I'm hoping that we can have these regular quarterly conversations and I can show you what we're doing. So I can give you the progress. Now that I know the subjects that you're interested in, I'd like to come back and say, okay, here's what we've done in these particular areas. This is what we're done here with that, because we've got some really incredible things coming to know our members, to the profession, to the people we serve across the board. And that's what I'm excited about.
I'm very excited about it as well. I'm gonna definitely take advantage of that offer that I'm gonna invite you every quarter.
Love it. Thank you.
I also, there is this conception that, or misconception, the way you look at it, is that the ADA promotes corporate dentistry and has left the independent dentist, people like myself, behind. Is that every piece of information that comes out, it rings a different tone for independent dentists like myself. And they feel, members, not just myself, I don't know if I feel that way about it or not, but I know a lot of people have told me that the ADA just promotes the DSOs, and that's the new catchword these days, that we want to be represented by the ADA. Are there any plans to directly address that?
Well, yeah, it's interesting people would say that because, when people say to me, what are you doing about the DSO dentistry and the corporate dentistry? I said, well, it's interesting because I'm doing the same thing for that I'm doing for the general practitioners, that I'm doing for the military dentists, that I'm doing for FQHC, the researchers, the education people. This is about the profession. How you deliver care is up to you. We want to be the supportive person that actually provides all the commonality to improve the way that you deliver care. The ADA is not about pushing DSOs. This is not about pushing the corporate dentistry. This is pushing the profession. This is about representing everybody across the board to be the best interest of the people that we serve. So I've heard people say that, but it's interesting because the question yourself is the problem. So what I'm doing for them is exactly what I'm doing for you. Is we have to look at the practice of dentistry as the focus point of the patients that we serve. Nothing can interfere with that. And how you choose to do that, that's up to you. But I've got to make sure with all the legislation and things that we're monitoring behind the scenes, that indeed that nothing interferes with that doctor-patient relationship. That's what this is all about, Bob. This is all about what we can do to better improve the people that we serve. This is what it's all about. That's what it means to be a profession, advancing the arts and sciences to all people everywhere. That's our focus. I love the white coat ceremony. It's one of my favorite ceremonies because I say when you put a white coat on, you make the biggest statement of all. And that is the lives that you serve is more important at times than your life of your own. And that's what we have to do. So when you say that particular aspect, I'm sorry that it's happening up that way, but that's not what the intent is by any means. The intention is whether you're a nursing home dentistry, whether you do a federally qualified health center, whether you're military, and yes, I've spent a lot of time with the military too, talking about them and what we can do to help address them, whether you happen to be in research, education, academia, Native American services, multiple public health service, we're all in that same commonality of improving people's things, and that's the message we're trying to carry. So it's not just about corporate dentistry. Corporate dentistry happens to be one of the arms of dentistry that we're delivering care to patients in that particular format. Most prevalently, obviously, is private practice. When we talk about 15, 20% corporate or group practice, that means 80% is the other way around. What I do see in the future of this is, Bob, I see less and less individual practice and more dentists practicing together because of the opportunities to come together for scheduling, for work-life balance, more than anything else. In other words, I want to work with this shift and I share my practice with somebody else. That's not corporate dentistry. That's just sometimes business dentistry in itself. We've got to make sure that we support everybody across the board. So to you, if that's what the ADA is, I don't want it to look like that we're doing that because we're supporting all of dentistry. The backbone of dentistry is the practitioner. However they happen to practice is critical.
And I believe you. But that brings me back to the other point that we talked about, is that if the perception is wrong, it's going to hurt the ADA.
You're right.
If that means you're not communicating well with the independent dentists, so they feel alone. They feel as their needs are not being met. So even if you're doing something and they don't see it, or they don't know it, or they don't hear about it, the perception is there, and that will hurt the ADA.
And that's the key issue, Bob. That's it exactly right there. You know, people have said that the ADA has a lack of communication. That is absolutely not true. That's not true at all. The ADA has lack of communication specific to what you need. They have lack of communication specific to what I need. Today's world is not about blanket and generalities. It's customized communication. It's customized delivery, because what you're interested in is not what I'm interested in, is not what the person next to me is interested in. We have to deliver content specific to what they want, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. And that's what we're missing, because the blanket communications give the perception that's incorrect. We need to start customizing, and that's our digital experience that we're working on right now. When we started focusing on those business groups that I talked about, those customer and those member groups, when we start focusing on that now, it becomes a completely different perspective. How do we deliver something specific to what they need to show them what the American Dental Association is doing in their behalf? You're exactly right, because perception is incorrect delivery of information. That's all that means. That's what it is. That means it was incorrect delivery. We have got to deliver content when they want, what they want, how they want, and what they need. That's the 4 things that we have to do. And we have not done that. Blanket, generality, shotgun approach of communication will not work, because people pick up the wrong perception when that happens. We've got to customize it to the individual. Then they start to see what the value of their ADA is doing for them. You said it exactly right. You're right. Perception has arisen from communication that is a blanket communication that does not necessarily deliver the intent specific to what that needs of that person is. That's what we have to improve upon, and that's what we're going to be doing. That's what I can't wait to talk to you about over the next 6 months. You're not going to believe what the ADA is doing the next 6 months. People are going to say, wow, this is mind-boggling of what the ADA. We're going to be using artificial intelligence that drives individual thought processes that customizes to them. Think about Amazon. I'm probably sure that people buy on Amazon. Well, when you turn on Amazon, it shows you things that you're interested in. And even what we call preemptive sales, where you buy things based upon what they recommended. We want to do the same type thing. Since you looked at this thing, since you're interested in practice management, check this out. Since you're in research, check this out. Since you looked at this article, this is something you may be interested in. Since you're interested in this product, this is another product that has a comparative value that may be able to do something better. That's customized communication. Then all of a sudden, you believe what the ADA does. Then that perception of the generality of what they're targeting goes away and says, you know what? The ADA is doing something specifically for me. So that's what we're driving for right now. And that's what we're going to achieve at your American Dental Association.
And I really appreciate that. But I just want to remind actions. You know, all of this technology is great. And it is. Excellent. Yeah.
You got it, Bob. It's actions, everything. I mean, you know, as I said, we've been assembling the car. It's got time. We got to start driving the car now. Let's start driving the vehicle. And we're getting close to that point, sir.
Right. And you know, this next question is kind of hand in hand with this. And this is a feeling that I have, you know, we have so much diversity in dentistry now. It's not the 1940s and 50s that it was a very homogeneous you know, demographic of dentists. You know, we have dentists from all countries around the world. Even we have LGBTQ members of the profession. What is the ADA is doing to be inclusive of all you know, demographics in the dental world? I don't believe, but I get a feeling that maybe we can address needs a little bit better if we are tapping into the different communities that form this dental world for us. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, that's what the American Dental Association has adopted. Strategic forecasting is a new process that the ADA is adopting that brings action groups to the table. That's representation specifically in those particular areas. So we're hearing from the voices that need to be heard from. We're hearing from the practicing population that needs to be heard from. I'm very proud the House of Delegates has adopted this entirely new process that says, you know what, we need to hear from multiple voices. And that's exactly what we're doing right now. We're starting to put this process into play. It was approved at the House of Delegates last November or last October. And it's now underway where we're getting our action groups into place, starting to set our vision. Again, when we start to look at that 5-year plan, how do you shape a 5-year plan without having voices of a diversified interest across the board from dentistry? And that's what strategic forecasting does. So it's bringing people to the table that we want to hear from, when we need to hear from, and designing the future of what it's going to be. Ultimately, we're seeing a generational gap right now. We're seeing the baby boomers have been so traditional. It's one of our largest groups, but we have a very large group coming on, which is the Generation Alphas, the Generation Zs, is our next group that comes forward from this point. So we've got to start looking at it from across the board of what the practice is going to be and the profession is going to be 10, 15 years from now. In order for that to happen, we have to have those diversified groups that you're talking about at the table helping us to make these discussions as we move forward. The ADA is becoming actually very diversified. If you look at our council structure, if you look at our house, if you look, we are pretty diversified across the board and pretty well specific when it comes to most of our councils and operations that really matches what the practicing profession is. Now we have to carry it to the next step and hear from each and every one of those voices to shape the future. So I'm very proud of what the ADA has done when it comes to diversification of leadership, getting the right voices at the right time, at the right place to the individuals that we need to make these decisions as we move forward. That's the whole purpose of this entire discussion on strategic forecasting is where do we want to be? How do we want to get there? And what's it going to take to get there? And that's where we have to have those diversified voices, listening to them on each and every day that makes the decision for the future. So I'm very proud of what our diversification has done. We've really done some incredible steps as far as that goes.
And hopefully you can give that again as leadership points to the states, because again, when we are writing a check, as I'm going to write after today's meeting to the ADA,
Thank you.
We are a member of 3 different organizations.
Yes, the
federal, state, and our local organization. I want the state and the local one to also behave the way you're talking about, the way you're as far as becoming diversified and doing things for the communities, and not just one community, all the whole dental nation, as the sports fans know.
Yes. Well, that's the whole purpose of our principles of partnership, of working with the states and carrying that communication back and forth and having that commonality of understanding what we're trying to accomplish. And we're seeing that actually occur right now as we speak. I'm very proud of what the states and the governments have done. You know, the tripartite organization is incredible. It's one of the most powerful operations around because it really provides the voices at 3 different levels, but each of them play a very integral role. But that's exactly what you're correct, Bob. I mean, we're spot on together. That's what we're working on.
Right.
Yes,
I want leadership from the ADA for all of these different organizations, and I hear that from you, and I appreciate it. Is there anything the ADA is doing to help us with staff shortages? That this question came up so many times, and especially our colleagues, call them our colleagues, our hygienists. I really want to be able to bring these 2 communities together, not to be such an adversary interactions all the time between our hygiene groups and our dental groups. I want to be able to bring us together and see what our problems are. How can we address that? Does the ADA have anything in that arena?
Well, actually, yes, that's one of the things we're working on right now. Staff shortages is our #1 issue. But Bob, it's not just dentistry, it's healthcare across the board. You know, I still wonder where the workforce went at times. We're still having difficulty filling staff positions. But as you look at the thought process of the remote workings, you know, remember, healthcare requires you to be there. It's a different type of mentality, but we are working through the public educational side. Remember the public professional, the group I talked about that? That part of that is public education, is starting to think about ways that we can do this. And we actually have a defined game plan over the next several years to really start to target this, to help the states, you know, supporting dental assisting programs. It's a very challenging situation. And also with hygiene programs too, you know, we're having difficulty getting hygienists right now. There's not enough hygiene programs. What we have to really look at, it's not the number of programs, it's not the number of graduates across the board, it's the number of clinical hours that we're delivering, you know, and that's something we have to look at dentistry too as well. So what we're doing at the ADA levels, we're starting, you know, looking at national campaigns, looking at organizing ourselves with other affiliation groups, specifically DANBI, you know, dental assistants, national boards process. How can we promote that? And we're doing it through our digital app series, you know, getting the information out. We want to start talking about social media, social campaigns to talk about the excitement. And the last thing we're working is with the American Dental Education Association is the deans and helping them carry this message outside of the schools about what the promising career of dental education can be. Of dental assisting, and of course, hygiene education. We've got a ways to go on this. This is not just a singular dental problem, Bob. This is a problem in healthcare, period. We're having difficulty getting nurses. We're having difficulty doing this. And ultimately, what it means is driving the cost up, because if there's less assistants, if there's less hygienists, you got to pay them more to maintain them at your office. So this is our public professional area that we're discussing right now on how to do the best campaign to start to get more people back into dentistry. But that all goes back to the working with the states, reducing the cost. Remember, education still does cost to train an assistant. So we've got a lot of things to do when it comes to staff shortages right now. And we're working across the board with the American Dental Hygiene Association, the Dental Assistants Association, the dental office managers. We're working with multiple aspects right now to carry the message of what we can do together. It's not going to be an easy solution overnight.
Nope.
Because I'll tell you, Bob, this is not a dental problem. This is just a problem of workforce in general. That's what this is.
Right. And what is the ADA doing to help the everyday problems of the dentist? Educating the public, for example. It's a big issue. Does the ADA have any kind of campaign on that to educate the public better, to maybe talk to dentists and say, hey, what are you struggling with? What is the number one thing that you have? I know I see a lot of emails from you guys, but sometimes they're not really relevant to me. And we talked about that before,
right? They're not relevant to you. That's right.
Right.
Okay, you're exactly right, but they're relevant to somebody else. What is the ADA doing to help with the education of the public? That's exactly why we created the public professional group. That's exactly. And yes, it's going to be a public awareness campaign. Are we in the process of designing what we're going to do? Yes, we've created an entire social media aspect of our department, where our IMC, which is our marketing company, a marketing group inside the ADA, we are working and partnering with external communication groups on how to best reach the individuals and promote the public profession of dentistry itself. It's not talking about assistants. It's actually talking about dentistry first. You got to talk about the profession first. You got to talk about what it's like to change people's lives, giving the stories, because younger generations love stories. We all love storytelling, how we change the lives of this one patient. So we're looking at public awareness campaigns across the board in the next upcoming, year or two. That's one of the things that we're discussing right now, is how do we get the message out further? We have created an entirely new communications division that works with social media, social integration, public media, printed media, multiple aspects, and of course, digital, to get the word out. So we've got a ways to go on that. We have fallen behind the scenes. One of our greatest programs is the ADA SEAL program. One of our greatest things is the American Dental Association Science and Research Institute. We have 87 researchers that are working specifically behind the scenes that test products through the ADA SEAL program, multiple materials, etc. Things that we're doing each and every day that our members really have no idea of how we're improving. The public doesn't have an idea of all that we're doing on the research. So now we're taking an entirely new communications campaign for the American Dental Association Science and Research Institute that talks about all the different things. We're starting a new program, B2P, benchtop to patient, translational research, which means we will test things that you're going to be able to use in your practice that that the ADA seal of approval was on those products. That's information, Bob, that we've got to get out, that we're doing a very poor job of doing right now. We have got to get that information out, and we can. And that's why we've started an entirely new division with those customer groups, for one, those 4 business groups of direct to member. The member is a critical one right there, the tripartite, the public professional. The public professional is the educational side, both internal and external, both to the people we're serving, and not just that, but the future practitioners of tomorrow. It's a diversified campaign that we'll be having underway within the next several years. We're very excited about that. So, as I said, I've been doing this for 15 months, and it takes a while to get these things into play, but we're working really hard to get a whole lot of changes, and you're going to see some major changes. And the American Dental Association of tomorrow is not the same old ADA that it was of yesterday. That's what I'm excited for us all.
Thank you very much for being here. I want to give you a couple of minutes if you wanted to add anything at the end.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, and thank you all for the opportunity to serve. I work for you. My job is to improve your lives and make your lives better. And there's a lot that needs to be done. We've slipped behind the times. You know, there's a line of change that the American Dental Association and many other companies and businesses and operations and associations have slipped behind the line of change. Well, we're going to be catching up. And not only that, we're going to become what I say, we're going to become the disruptors, not the disrupted, but the disruptors. And to be the disruptors, we have to move above that line. We can't do what I call twatting. The way we've always done it is not going to work for today's world. It's not going to survive. What we do today will not survive 5 years from now. We've got to continue to improve ourselves and move forward. One of my uncles I love very much, he said, you have two choices in business. You're either expanding or you're going out of business. That's all there's to it. There's no other choice. So you can't do the status quo. We've got to continue to move forward. I love to talk about tomorrow, Bob, because it's the one thing I can change. You and I can change 1 minute from now. We can change tomorrow. We can change next week, but we can't do anything about the past. Yesterday is yesterday. It's over, and there's nothing we can do to change yesterday. That's a clear point. So what we do as we move forward is this. We're making a lot of changes at your American Dental Association. We're making changes you're going to not just be proud of, but you're going to see the metrics, you're going to see the outcomes and say, you know what? My ADA did this for me. That's why I want to be a member of our ADA, because I'm proud they did this for me and they're protecting me behind my back each and every day to ensure that my practice and that my delivery of care and that patient-doctor relationship is never interfered with. Give us a chance to show you what we can be. I hope that you all consider being members of the ADA because we can really move forward together. We can't do this independently. Life is not going to work. In today's world, we will not be able to do this on an independent basis. Coming together is going to be the key to the future and driving where we need to be. We can do that as a voice together. I hope that the American Dental Association can be that voice for you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. I appreciate it. I know I have a lot of questions we didn't get to. We have a limited time, but I promise the people
Let's come back
watching
in 3 months. Let's do this again in another 3 months.
Absolutely. We're going to get to all the questions.
Let's pick more one subject, and I can give you all the things that we're doing in that one particular subject and show you some outcome and show you how we've actually changed people's lives.
Absolutely. And this will be available later on today in the group and in our YouTube channel. Once again, I really give you credit for coming on. I want people to know that, you know, we're not here to bash anyone. We're here to improve our lives as dentists. And I believe the ADA can take that leadership role and take us there.
Thank you for the opportunity to serve, Bob. I really appreciate it. Please reach out to me if you need me. You have my contact information. I certainly look forward to working with you in the future.
Great. Nice talking to you today, and hopefully we can do this again.
Okay. Thank you, sir.